All right, good morning, you filthy animals. Ziggy's out. Maybe we'll get a picture of him in the end of the video. And I'm out too, so we out here. Last night, I finally finished reading The Bird in Flight Leaves No Trace by Son Master Subul. And I spoke a little bit about this on various videos, so let me explain what it is. So, it is a compilation of the recorded sayings of a Zen master named either Huang Po. They choose to transliterate it as Huang Po Jiyun in this version. It's in the past been translated as Huang Po. You know, these things are kind of complicated. The way the transliterations of Asian languages have changed over time. This sort of thing is also what causes some confusion about Godzilla. So it's in English Godzilla. And people will say, oh, that's wrong. He's actually Gojira in Japan. He's called Gojira. He's not called Gojira in Japan. He's called, it's more like Gojira. And when the transliteration was done in the 50s, for when the first Godzilla movie came out, the standard transliteration of Gojira would have been Godzilla. So the only thing they did was add an extra L. But then the transliteration changed, and the same syllables were transliterated as Gojira. So Gojira. So people think, oh, it's really Gojira. Well, it's not Gojira or Godzilla. It's something kind of in between. Same deal with Huang Po and Huang Po. That was a long-winded explanation to get to a very small piece of information. So, who was Huang Po? Well, here's another little Japanese lesson for you. Huang Po is known by most Japanese people as Obaku. And that's because the Japanese pronounce the Chinese characters that are used for Huang Po or Huang Po's name, there you can hear Ziggy, as Obaku. So that's the deal with that. We don't know when he was born, but he died somewhere around the year 855 or 859. That's not 1855 or 1859, that's 855 or 859. I don't know what Ziggy's barking at. He was a student of Hyakujo Eikai, who is also known as Baizhang, who is also famous for Hyakujo's fox, koan. And if you read my book, It Came From Beyond Zen, you read 2 essays about Hyakujo's fox, and that was Obaku's teacher, and Obaku appears in that story, Hyakujo's fox. He was also the teacher of Master Rinzai of the Linchi of the famous Rinzai sect of Zen, the rival sect to the Soto sect, the ones that, we're always against here in the Soto sect. And he's the subject of a lot of koans. And here's something Nishijima Roshi wrote in his Shobo Genzo in a footnote about Obaku. Master Obaku Kiyun, aka Huang Po Shiyun, was known for striking his disciples, including Master Rinzai Gigen, to impress on them that reality is different from thinking and feeling. And then he mentions a koan in which this happens, and he was well known for that. He was also supposed to be 7 feet tall and have a pearl-shaped bump in the middle of his head. Dogen was very fond of Obaku Huang Po. And here's a few of the things that Dogen says. This is from Butsu Koji no Ji, The Matter of Ascendant State of Buddha, which is chapter 28 of Shobo Genzo. Obaku, as the Dharma child of Hyakujo, is even more excellent than Hyakujo, and as the Dharma grandchild of Baso, aka Matsu, is even more excellent than Baso. That's high praise right there, because these are really great masters. In general, among the ancestral patriarchs of those 3 or 4 generations, there is none who stands shoulder to shoulder with Obaku. Here he says in Bukkyo Buddhist Sutras, chapter 52, Obaku is an eternal Buddha who transcends past and present. He is even higher than Hyakujo. He is even more of a genius than Baso, so kind of the same thing. And he says in Menju, face-to-face transmission, Dogen says Obaku is an eternal Buddha. Again, kind of repeating. He is at the limit of investigation of the succession of Dharma, so it means he's like the most, he's the guy who got it all the way. So, what can I tell you about this book? Well, this book is new. Let's see, when was it written? 2019, I believe, is when it came out. It also has a copyright of 2014, so maybe it came out in Korean in 2014 and then in English in 2019. So it's from a Korean teacher of Zen named Son Master Subul. So Son is how the Koreans pronounce the same character that the Japanese pronounce Zen and that the Chinese pronounce Chan. That's Son in Korean. And so it's a kind of an update of this book, which I've mentioned on this page before. This is John Blofeld's translation of the same material called The Zen Teaching of Huang Po. And this book has been around a long time. Let's see, copyright 1958. So it has a bit of that 50s Zen translation feel to it. Certain words are used that they were fond of in the 50s, like the void and things like that. People don't usually translate ku or emptiness as the void anymore, but back in the 50s they did. So it's kind of an update. When I first started reading this book, sorry, I was going back and forth with the translations, just checking to see how close they were. And there's not really a major difference in the translations. So it's not like this kind of night and day difference, but it is a little more modern sounding in this version. But it's pretty much still the same stuff. There are a couple other translations of the same material that aren't really as well known. This one I got off of Amazon. I'm not sure who Chin Tokong is. He seems to write a lot of books about gaming, but he also put together this book of the translations of Wang Po. I haven't really dug into it, so I can't tell you much about how good it is or anything. And it also, a lot of the same material, but not all of the same material, appears in this publication from Numata, who also published Nishijima Roshi's books in a nice edition called the Zen Texts. One nice thing about this version that makes it somewhat superior to this one in certain aspects is you get the Chinese translations right there. Not translations, but you get the original Chinese. Let's see, how can we put that? Below. So you get the English translation on top, and then right below you get the Chinese. And for somebody who can read that stuff, like yours truly, I can't read Chinese that well, but when you learn to read Japanese, you automatically learn to read a certain amount of Chinese. So that made it possible for me to go and look if I had a question about how a certain word might have been translated. Oh, I wonder what they're translating there. I can just look below and figure it out. So that's really nice. If you don't have that particular skill, maybe that's not going to be quite as much of a selling point for you, but I thought it was a big selling point for me. So I like that. And you'll also notice the thickness of this book and this book. They both are translations of the same material, but here's this one which is kind of thin, and here's this one which is kind of fat. Why is it kind of fat? It's kind of fat because it has commentaries. So, well, you can see it. I'll show you back, same page. So you get the verse. Oh, sorry, I keep pointing to the wrong thing because it's all backwards for me. So you get the actual translation, then you get the Chinese, the original Chinese characters that they're translating. So there you can see. And then you get a commentary. The commentary is, well, let's see. What can we say about the commentary? It's... The lineage that this guy comes from is more in line with Rinzai. If you were going to put it in the Japanese terms, it's more like Rinzai style Zen than Soto style Zen. So there are a lot of mentions of working on, I think he calls it Huado, which is a koan. I believe that's the pronunciation they use. So he mentions that a lot, and I kind of, which is where they give you a funny question to think about during Zazen, and then you're supposed to answer it to the teacher. The tradition in Korean-style Zen, at least as far as I know, is a bit different from the tradition in Japanese-style Rinzai Zen. And I get the impression that it's a sort of a softer thing, the way the Koreans deal with it. The way the Japanese Rinzai sect tends to stereotypically deal with koans is this very kind of hard-assed, almost macho thing, and I get the impression that the Koreans are a lot less macho with it and a lot less insistent on having breakthroughs and this kind of thing. But you do get a little bit of that in the commentary. I'll read you I kind of picked this sort of semi-randomly. I made a little note in the back of the book, which is what I do when I like books. And I made a note about this one that I kind of liked the commentary on it. So I'm choosing this one to read as a version where I liked the commentary. Here you go. Here's the translation of Obaku, aka Huang Bo, aka Huang Po. Therefore, know that all dharmas are created by the mind, and even the 6 rebirth destinies, including humans, heavenly beings, hell, denizens, and demigods, are all created by the mind. If you would nowadays master no mind, immediately put to rest all conditioning and arouse no delusory thoughts and discrimination, then there will be no self or others, no craving or aversion, no love or hate, no winning or losing. And then I can look down here and find out what they translated as love and hate, and craving and aversion, and winning and losing, and that's very interesting for me because I know how these characters work in Japanese, so it's kind of interesting. But here's the commentary by Son Master Subul. All dharmas are created by mind means the same as the passage we saw before. Well, whatever that was. Oh, he mentions the passage we saw before. Here we go. If the mind arises, various dharmas arise. If the mind ceases, various dharmas cease. Okay, he's saying these are equivalent phrases. Therefore, the mind is called the fundamental cause. Since the mind brings about a process of rebirth through the 6 destinies, if you turn your mind around, all relative phenomena will disappear. If you master no mind by putting to rest all the conditions that create external phenomena, then all sorts of speculations and discriminations will vanish as quickly as a snowflake falling into a red-hot brazier. What is a brazier? I guess it's kind of a burner. But do not make an effort to maintain no mind, because such efforts are also based on discriminations. Rather, allow no mind to occur naturally without effort. I just like that. Don't make an effort to maintain no mind, because such efforts are based on discriminations. Rather, allow no mind to occur naturally without effort. They're cleaning up something over there, so sorry about that sound. So I like that commentary. The only thing that I kind of didn't like about this book is, what's it called? The translator's introduction, in which the translator, Robert E. Buswell Jr., makes a big kind of pitch for Son Master Subul and how great he is and how he's developed this new method of teaching Zen that's better than any, or teaching Son that's better than any other, and it just comes off kind of, I really don't like it. It rubs me the wrong way. I'm not saying he's a bad translator or anything, but I didn't need all that advertisement for this teacher, and probably if I'd come to this thing cold, without having read the other translation first and being really interested, I think that introduction might have turned me off and might have made me think twice about looking at the thing, because it's so over the top. But I put it down to this guy who translated it really, 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 really likes his teacher, and he really, really thinks he's great, and he wants everybody in the world to know how great he is, and, we all do that. I've done that with Nishiji Moroshi, other people do that with their teachers, so, okay, fine. I'll give him a pass for that. I just thought he laid it on really thick there, and so if that kind of thing bothers you, just skip the translator's introduction and go on to read the book instead. So I would say, all in all, thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, like the old Siskel and Ebert used to do. Only there's only one of me and one Ziggy, and I just think it's real good, and I would recommend it as a good piece of reading if you want to read something good about Zen and you're sick of reading my books. There you go. And you're waiting for my next book to come out, which I'm working on, but it won't come out for a while because it's still in that phase. So thank you very much for watching. Remember that I survive on donations, which are you can send them to this URL you're seeing on the screen. That's how me and Ziggy make things work in our lives, and it's our only way of making money right now. Ziggy doesn't make much money, and I only make what I get from donations. So I really, really appreciate the donations you give. But if you're having financial trouble, don't donate to me. Just keep it for yourself and keep yourself going, because I'm doing all right, but I'm doing all right because people do keep sending donations, and even the small ones help, and I thank you very much for those, and thanks a lot. See you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye. All right. Hey, Ziggy. Hey, Ziggy. How you doing? Hi, Ziggy.